Right now, above your head, there are satellites passing over that you have never heard of. They are silent, they are invisible, and they are watching. Right now, they are tracking movement, mapping the infrastructure of your life, and following ships through the world's most dangerous waterways. And they don't all belong to who you think, not just American, not just European, Iranian. And that changes everything, because a country that was once dismissed as a regional power now has eyes in space, eyes that answer to one man, Ayatollah Mojtaba Khamenei. And every 90 minutes, those satellites pass over the same regions again, quietly collecting data, mapping movement, watching what changes and what doesn't. Most people will never know they exist. Most governments won't talk about them, but they are there and they are watching. If you want to see the world as it really is and the systems that watch it from above, then subscribe, because the picture is only getting clearer. This isn't science fiction. This is happening right now, and it is happening under a structure of absolute authority. Because in Iran, space is not just a scientific frontier, it is a strategic one. And that system exists within a structure ultimately overseen by Ayatollah Mojtaba Khamenei, which means space development is not just technological. Under his direction, the reach of the Islamic Republic has extended beyond the borders of the Middle East and into the silence of low Earth orbit. In one of the most sensitive regions on Earth, the Strait of Hormuz, this capability is becoming a silent game changer, because this narrow stretch of water carries a large share of the world's oil, roughly 20% of global supply, passing through a gap just 33 kilometers wide. If that passage is disrupted, the global economy doesn't just stumble, it breaks. And today, it is being monitored across multiple layers. Ships, drones, radar systems, and above all of it, satellites. The Iranian government has stated that it can observe this region continuously, not just occasionally, but as part of an integrated system. And that changes the situation entirely. Because in modern conflict, the side that sees first often decides what happens next. When people think of space power, they think of NASA or companies like SpaceX. Iran is rarely mentioned in the same breath. But that is a mistake, because today, Iran is one of a limited number of countries that can design satellites, build them domestically, and launch them into orbit. And once a country controls all three, it no longer depends on anyone else for access to space. It builds its own picture of the world on its own terms. Without permission, Iran's Noor satellites are Earth observation satellites. They orbit the planet roughly every 90 minutes, capturing images from above. The latest versions can detect large objects, ships moving through narrow waterways, airfields, infrastructure. Not everything, but enough. Enough to understand patterns, enough to track movement over time. And when those observations are repeated again and again, a simple image becomes something more powerful. It becomes awareness, and awareness, in the right hands, becomes leverage. Iran has already taken steps toward expanding this system, including plans for satellite constellations. One satellite gives you a snapshot. Multiple satellites give you continuity. And once that continuity exists, you are no longer just observing events. You are following them in real time. Now connect that to what is happening today. In the Strait of Hormuz, there have been repeated reports of GPS disruption, navigation interference, and ships appearing in incorrect positions on tracking systems. Vessels that thought they knew exactly where they were suddenly didn't. For crews navigating one of the most critical shipping routes in the world, that uncertainty matters. It can mean the difference between a safe passage and an incident that makes international headlines. At the same time, Iran claims it can monitor the entire region through a layered system. And this is where things become more serious, because modern conflicts are no longer defined only by physical force. They are shaped by information. Knowing where something is before anyone else does can change the outcome entirely. Satellites make that possible. They can track shipping routes, monitor naval movement, detect patterns across entire regions, and Iran has already demonstrated that it can collect this type of data. In one case, it released satellite imagery showing a U.S. naval base in Bahrain. The resolution was limited, but the significance was not. It was a message, quiet, deliberate. We can see you. It showed that the system works, and once a system works, it improves. Iran's space program did not appear overnight. Its first major step came in 2009, when it launched its first domestically built satellite into orbit. That launch took place under President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, who strongly supported expanding Iran's technological independence. Since then, progress has been steady. New satellites, new rockets, more launches. In 2020, Iran launched its first military satellite, using a rocket developed by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. That moment marked a shift, because it showed that Iran's space capability was no longer only civilian. It had become part of a broader system, one that includes military applications. And that system exists within a structure ultimately overseen by Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, which means space development is not just technological, it is strategic. It is a tool of national power. Since then, additional satellites have followed, each one slightly more advanced, better imaging, more stable orbits, improved communication, and alongside satellites, Iran continues to develop launch vehicles and expand its infrastructure, because launching is the key. If you can launch your own satellites, you control how quickly your system grows, and once that growth accelerates, the difference becomes noticeable. More satellites, more coverage, less uncertainty. Now here is where the topic becomes more complex. The technology used to launch satellites is closely related to long-range missile technology. Both require powerful rockets, precise guidance, and the ability to reach high altitudes. The engineering knowledge transfers directly. This overlap is widely recognized, and it is one of the reasons why programs like this are watched closely. By intelligence agencies, by defense ministries, by governments that understand what dual-use technology really means. Because what is being built is not just a space program, it is a system with multiple layers. Satellites in orbit, launch vehicles on the ground, data systems processing information in real time. And when those layers are connected, they create something far more powerful than any single piece alone. Now step back, because the bigger story is not just about Iran. It is about how space itself is changing. For decades, only a few countries had access to these capabilities. Now, that barrier is slowly disappearing. More countries are building independent systems, more satellites are being launched every year, and more information is being gathered from orbit. Iran is one example of that shift, not the most advanced, but one of the fastest evolving, and one of the easiest to underestimate, because most of this happens far above the atmosphere, out of sight, invisible to most of the world. But every 90 minutes, those satellites pass overhead again, watching the oceans, the deserts, the shipping routes of the Persian Gulf. And as more of them are added, the picture becomes clearer, more complete, more precise. Because once a country develops its own eyes in space, the way it understands the world changes. And in moments of tension, or even war, that understanding can become one of the most powerful tools it has. Not a weapon you can see coming, not a force you can intercept, just information, flowing silently from orbit, shaping decisions before anyone fires a single shot. And often, by the time the world notices, that capability is already in place.